Boa noite, bem-vindos aqui à nossa live, que está começando um pouquinho atrasada, mas finalmente a gente conseguiu se ajeitar aqui. Esse negócio de tradução e tudo dá uma dificultada. Bom, pessoal, resolvi fazer essa live e fazer desse jeito pela seguinte razão. Eu fui convidada pelo Henrique, meu sócio, fundador do Grupo Método também, para participar de um workshop em João Pessoa, agora em novembro, sobre práticas mais modernas, com compaixão, de análise do comportamento. E, assim, eu, em geral, eu não perco nenhuma oportunidade de ir para João Pessoa, tá? Então, começa daí. Mas aí eu quis me aprofundar um pouco no tópico, até para preparar a minha palestra. Eu sei que tem bastante gente interessada nesse tópico, e é um tópico que vem borbulhando em vários países, em várias regiões do mundo, né? A gente está falando de críticas que a gente recebe como analistas do comportamento, e principalmente eu vou admitir que eu estou nessa área já há mais de 30 anos, então eu comecei nos anos do Lovaz, né, na análise do comportamento. Então, muitas das práticas criticadas e tal, eu testemunhei, eu fui parte delas. Acho que é importante a gente saber refletir sobre as nossas próprias práticas, é importante a gente poder avaliar e avaliar criticamente, e para que a gente consiga evoluir daí para frente. Então, eu quis conhecer um pouco o Cory e a Kara, para até para eu entender melhor o que eu ia preparar, tá? Aí, para apresentar para vocês, então, nisso tudo, eu resolvi que eu queria compartilhar com vocês essa conversa minha com esses profissionais que têm aí uma baita de uma reputação, uma baita de uma experiência, estudaram bastante e têm se dedicado bastante a este tópico, tá? Eu vou trazer, então, eu vou trazer aqui na live daqui a alguns minutos a Kara e o Cory. A gente vai falar em inglês, mas vocês podem traduzir aí no YouTube, tá? Eu vou tentar é, falar devagar e vou pedir para os convidados também falarem devagar, para dar tempo de fazer a tradução, tá bom? Mas aí, apresentando para vocês os meus convidados, deixa eu pegar aqui, porque o currículo deles é vasto, né? A Kara, ela é mestre em educação especial e ela fez doutorado no mesmo lugar, no mesmo lugar que eu estudei. Eu até estava contando para eles que eu não concluí o doutorado, eu saí de lá um pouco antes de fazer a dissertação, mas eu terminei todo o curso. Então, a Kara fez o PhD dela na Western New England University, que na minha época era Western New England College, em Massachusetts, que é o mesmo lugar que eu vivi, e é doutora em análise do comportamento, BCBAD, e também licenciada no estado de Massachusetts. E o Cory também tem uma formação em análise do comportamento, né? E isso é uma característica enfim, da nossa proposta, né, ter essa formação profunda em análise do comportamento, só que ele também é Speech and Language Pathologist. Como vocês sabem, aí, nos Estados Unidos, a fono e a audiologia são separadas. Então, a Speech and Language Pathologist é uma das carreiras profissionais que aqui no Brasil a gente chama de fonoaudiólogo. E ele é um fonoaudiólogo com formação em análise do comportamento. Também é um BCBAD, né? Ele tem o doutorado também na Western New England University, e com essa formação peculiar aí em fonoaudiologia ou Speech and Language Pathology. E eu acho que isso é interessante porque, além do tópico em questão, a gente tem essa questão da interdisciplinariedade que a gente tem sofrido um tempão, que a gente sempre sofre, né, para tentar melhorar. Eu acho que nos Estados Unidos esse problema também existe, mas está um pouco mais resolvido. Então, eu vou apresentar para vocês aqui, vou falar em inglês, como eu falei, mas vocês podem ativar aí as traduções. Good evening, guys, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
So these two guys are going to be here with us a little in a month from now,
Yep.
and we're going to be talking about more like the newer practices in behavior analysis and more compassionate practices, and even as we talk about that, we probably have to talk about the old practices as well. But I want to know, first of all, I want to tell folks that are watching us about this workshop that's going to happen in November. And our idea, like Enrique and I, and when we started talking about this, we wanted to show that behavior analysis is not exactly what many people think it is. And although it may have, because it has a long history, it also has, questionable practices. So first of all, guys, if you can tell me a little bit of what you do right now, like what you guys up to in the US, and what your practices look like, what your clients look like. What do you guys do?
Good.
So we at Seasons Behavioral Services, we provide both home services and school-based consultation. So right now in our home-based program, we work with children as young as 4 years old. And I believe our oldest client right now is 21. And so we work with families and those learners on helping those children develop language skills, play skills, social skills, and any goals that parents or that client might advocate for themselves that are important to them. And we take a very client-led approach, and it's important to us that we give our clients choice over what they are learning, but also provide a lot of choice throughout the therapy session. We let them lead the way, tell us what's important to them, and making sure that they want to participate and they want to be involved in the therapy that we provide. And in our school consultation, we work with school district BCBAs, team members, special educators, to be able to deliver some of those compassionate practices in school, and how to be able to incorporate some of that choice, assent, and more of that progressive ABA approach within the school systems, and how to kind of collaborate amongst those interdisciplinary teams of speech pathologists, special ed, and BCBAs, and how we can kind of create the best treatment approach for that child in that educational setting.
Kara, can I just ask you further a little bit about that part of the consent, the assent and consent?
Mm-hmm.
This has been a big issue here. Like, how do you get people that are not able to talk, or that are not really able to explain to you what they prefer, or what they accept, or what they, because what I always say is that there is always a preference. Whether or not we can see the preference, there is a preference, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how are there protocols and assessments for you to identify, to figure this out?
That's a really good question. And so for our vocal learners, it's always kind of figuring out what do they want to participate in that day, teaching them how to advocate for themselves, whether it's a break, I don't want to do this. But for our learners who maybe can't quite vocalize that yet, we're working with our teams to kind of recognize those cues of they're not ready to participate, and can we teach them to advocate? Can we follow their lead? What can we do to encourage them to want to participate? Or do we need to change our activity, change the location, incorporate more choice, or take a step back and build that therapeutic rapport? And we spend a lot of time with our team members making sure that there is good rapport, because we know that that is kind of one of the foundational layers of kids wanting to participate, is when they feel like they have a coach instead of a teacher or somebody who is just forcing them to participate in certain things. And so we read a lot of those nonverbal cues. If they're like constantly walking away or leaving the room or running away when they see us enter the house, those are some cues for us of they're not ready and our therapy isn't well designed, and we need to pivot on goals, activities, and things like that.
That's
So
great.
generally speaking, that's kind of our protocol.
So like basically like nonverbal cues and other behaviors that will communicate, right? In another way. It's funny, Kara and Cory. I've been in this area for a little while, right? But in the 90s, when I first started, I read a paper by James Holland, who wrote a book with Skinner in the 60s. I think it was 61 that they wrote a book together. And in 78, he wrote a paper, was published at JABA, named Behaviorism, Part of the Problem or Part of the Solution. And all my peers, like Caio Miguel or like Paula Braga Canyon, all my peers had to read that paper like 100 times. And Paula and I actually stopped James Holland in Atlanta in one of the ABBAs to take a picture with him, because we thought he was the coolest guy in town, because he questioned what we were doing, as behaviorists. And I thought that it was great. I think that costed his career, actually, but he was very brave to put that on a paper, which at that time, his point was, why the hell are we segregating people to change their behavior if we think that the environment is going to produce that behavior anyways? You know what I mean? Why aren't we working there? So I think it is like there has always been in behavior analysis some type of self-criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of feel like this whole like new thing is a little bit of our new self-criticism, right? Would you agree with that, Cory?
Yeah, I would. I think before we had good language to describe this kind of practice, a long time ago, I used to think about our procedures or our methods or what we were doing with kids with some pretty profound disabilities. And I used to train my staff, like this was years and years ago, that, what you're doing in this moment with that child or that adult, would you do it if that person's, grandma was sitting next to you? And if the answer to that question is no, then we should do something different. And I think, Dr. Hanley really helped shape these ideas about, he describes it as, would you want what you're doing to be broadcast on the evening news? He calls it this concept of, would you be okay doing this on TV? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't be okay doing it ever. So I think he really kind of helped change or teach us about how to describe it in a way that it's about, at the end of the day, treating the people we serve with ultimate compassion and care, over, putting compassion over our procedures, making sure it's at the forefront of what we do. So that I totally agree that it's a good way to question our past, question our current practice, and always be evolving.
And we always have to do that anyways. And I'm sure in the future, we're going to be doing the same again. I just don't like, the only thing that I wonder is like, we are not, this is still, I think this is a debate within behavior analysis. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, it's not only the protocols or the practices or the guidelines, it's about how you do that. And that question, I always told my staff, and I'm sure a lot of my staff are going to watch this, but I always told my staff is that, like, even before this whole thing started, I said, listen, if the kid doesn't want to walk in, he's not going to learn shit. You know what I mean? He's not going to learn. He's not going to walk in, because I came from that practice, like that LOVAS kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the kid has to stay in the chair. The kid has to look. The kid has to do it. Instruction that's given, it's instruction that's followed, that whole thing. And then I was like, oh, that doesn't quite work, right? I mean, you cannot learn if you don't want to learn. So the first thing is you got to want, you got to make a choice, always make a choice.
Yeah, and I think we probably all have memory, regardless of whether or not you feel like you did something wrong or not, you always can reflect back on your past practice and think, oh, I would do that differently now because I know better. And
of course, yeah.
I have a lot of stories or a lot of, memories of thinking, man, I wish I could be back in that moment, because I would make a different decision that was still a therapeutic decision and an effort to help the child learn some important skills, but I might administer that differently, right? I might come at it from a different perspective.
Let me ask you guys something. Do you guys work with severe problem behavior as well, or just like young kids and up to 21? And
Yeah.
but do you work with severe?
We do both. So a lot of the kids in our home-based program have less severe problem behavior, but a lot of the kids that we do our school consultation with are kids who are kind of at risk for going out of district into private, either residential or private day programs for kids with disabilities and severe behavior. And the districts that we work with, they often come to us because they want to keep the child in their least restrictive environment, meaning with their peers and their home school and their neighborhood. So a lot of the folks, and sometimes we do consult to private schools also that the kids are already outplaced, but a lot of the severe behavior that we work on is within an educational team, kind of thinking about how to design curriculum or learning environments that are going to support their needs, but also keep everybody safe.
Mm-hmm. So do you think the same mentality that you guys have, the same vision, could be applied to like more severe, like, I mean, New England Center, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it could be applied to that population that they serve there, to the out of district kind of kids and kids that come from other states and stuff like that?
Yeah, and it might arguably be more important to apply it with those guys if I had to really think about it. But yes, I think we've done this in hospitals, we've done it in private programs and schools.
Right.
We apply that, kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So, but like, is there any research done with that population and with respect to that type of practice and that type of protocol with more severe kids?
Yeah, we actually just published a paper in March of this year, where we group of authors, co-authors, and we applied these procedures, these kind of more compassionate, hands-off approaches with an autistic teenager. We did it via telehealth. He was living in India, and he was choking his family. He was, really hurting his caregivers. He was at risk of expulsion from school. So yes, we just published a paper recently on a case example of applying, practical functional assessment and skills-based treatment, and really a hands-off approach just recently for a teenager with severe behavior.
So, let me ask you this, guys, conceptually, in terms of like principles and stuff, right? You use the same principles when you do a compassionate approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still like reinforcement, contingencies, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, and still a little bit of extinction, if I may. We still do, we use all the principles, not just one or two. Yeah.
Right, of course, right? Because you want to actually, you need to teach the kids to make choices.
Right.
Yep.
Some things are more reinforcing than other things, and there is extinction there and not there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's cool. That's pretty cool. So in this workshop, you're going to teach a little bit of the protocols and a little bit of that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah. So in the workshop, we'll have a couple different talks. So we'll take everybody through the practical functional assessment. So what that might looks like, how you select the environment, the implementer, what behaviors you include, what behaviors are reinforced within the analysis, how to maintain safety at the forefront of that analysis, how to be time efficient with it. And then we'll also go into skills-based treatment. So a lot of similar things of how do you select the communication response? How do you design the reinforcers? What do you do when problem behavior does occur? All the way from beginning through end of treatment. So we'll do some presentations, we'll do some case examples, there'll be opportunity for active responding. And so it'll be a full day kind of dedicated to practical functional assessment and skills-based treatment. And then on day 2, we're going to have a presentation on universal protocols. So what to do when you have a kid who is having severe problem behavior, but you maybe aren't quite ready to do the analysis yet. They show up on day 1 and you're not ready to start the analysis, but how can we make sure that they have a really good experience coming into your center or your team entering their home? And what does this look like? How do you design it? How do you train your team? We're also going to do a presentation on how to use similar procedures with parents for young learners who have emerging problem behavior. So implementing that balanced protocol of teaching parents how to teach their children these skills. And then finally, Cory's going to do a talk on collaboration between speech pathology and
Wow, that's awesome.
APA. So there's going to be a lot of topics we'll cover. It's going to be good.
There is I think you touched the three main topics, I think, that are really big here. First, school settings, right? I think there has been a huge struggle with the inclusion legislation and the actual inclusion of kids with learning disabilities and special needs and stuff. So people that work in school, teachers and special ed teachers, we don't have that here, but like teachers and aides, and they really don't have many tools, especially because education here, like in the US, is very much educational, right? It's kind of like the school is there for that purpose, and it's very hard to change. But now they are changing a little bit, and they are welcoming strategies to deal with that population, because now they have to. The other population that I feel like really needs attention is parents, right? We don't really have much attention to the parents, although like we always make an effort to include, to train and whatever, but it's very hard to have we don't have services. The services are not paid, right? They are not funded. Parents don't have funded services unless you include in the plan for your child. And the other thing is the whole interdisciplinary teams to include the speech and language pathologist, and the other professionals, the occupational therapist, and everything. So you guys are going to touch very important topics for us here.
I think our goal is to have folks leave with something really practical that they can use. So, anytime I've attended a workshop or a training, I'm always thinking about a client or two, and how will I now leave and apply this? So our goal is to bring that out of people, to come thinking about a real problem you have to solve. And let's not leave until we've helped you make some steps towards solving that problem. We're going to talk generally about processes and give examples and role play and do a lot of dynamic work. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we want people to leave with something that they can take back and say, okay, I know where to start with this client, or I know what I'm going to do on days 1, 2, and 3. Maybe I'm not perfect on day 4 yet, but I'm going to get the ball rolling and go from there. So we want people to leave with some skills that they can apply.
And some ideas and motivation, right? That's great. That's great. I think people that are going to go, and I know people from here where I am in São Paulo, which is some good 2,000 miles from there. But I know people from here that are going.
Oh, great.
So I think people have great expectations of that point, and sometimes it's, I think takes a little bit of role playing and sometimes I tell the therapist, guys, you're not in a hurry, take your time,
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, oh, I need to be productive. I need to do 10 trials. And I'm like, no, dude, if you get one good trial, that's great. That's much better than, if you get one good opportunity, it's much better than 10 bad opportunities. It's
Yeah, and I think we're gonna try to carve out time for people to get into the nitty-gritty of asking and answering those questions that are kind of, they're thinking about with their particular client. Sometimes you go to a workshop and it's please don't ask specific questions because we won't have time to get to it. I think we're going to really try to lean the other way and say, bring those specifics. Let's get into challenges you've had or a case that's really kind of giving you trouble, and how can we help you, leave better prepared.
Oh, I think that's going to be great because I think you're going to learn a lot. You're going to listen to a lot of new stories and think about new cases.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask Henrique if they have questions. O Caio Miguel said something. but I don't see it. I got on my WhatsApp, all right? Well, what can I say? Behavior analysis is going through a very important moment of change, and we are revisiting how we assess and teach verbal behavior. So that's very nice. Like, so we have some fancy people watching us here, you know?
Yeah, that is very cool.
Any more questions, Enrique? And I am looking on the wrong phone. Or Enrique, do you have any more comments there that because I wasn't looking at my phone now. I don't know if there is anything else. Any questions that you wanna put, guys? Because I'm opening here for you guys. When are you guys gonna come? You're gonna come right before the workshop?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we fly down November 21st.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
You coming back to the US before Thanksgiving then?
Yeah, the day before. Yeah.
Mhm.
We're looking forward to experiencing Brazilian culture and eating good
Oh,
food.
you're gonna love it there. It's a great place. I mean, I think it's one of the best cities in Brazil because it's a great quality of life there, but it's also beautiful. I mean, Henrique lives right on the water.
Sounds great.
Yeah, he has a nice Caribbean overlook.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's great. Years ago, Enrique came to a cookout at my house, and it was not, we were definitely not looking at the water. So I can't wait to go down there.
In Massachusetts or
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's gonna, I know we're gonna stay in a nice hotel too, so it's gonna be good. Guys, I'm gonna open for any questions you may have. Henrique?
Hello,
Henrique is on?
Nilson.
Henrique is on.
Olá, pessoal. Boa noite. Hi, guys. Nice to see you.
I have
Hi.
another question here, if you guys, if I can put.
So, Meca, just some points. Sorry, guys, I say em português, ok? Pessoal, primeiro, muito obrigado por todos que estão assistindo e que já se inscreveram no workshop. O workshop está sendo aí um sucesso de procura. Também gostaria de agradecer a todos que apoiaram essa iniciativa. Então, temos vários parceiros aí nessa iniciativa para fazer esse workshop acontecer. Então, estamos muito animados para ter vocês em João Pessoa em novembro. Tá? Então, para quem tiver mais interesse em informações, a gente está divulgando aí o tempo inteiro. Então, além do Cory e da Kara e da Meca, também teremos a participação da Teca. Então, teremos aí
Teca
bastante...
Meca?
Exato. Teca, Meca, Kara, Cory.
All like 2 syllables, like people.
So, you talk a little bit for the topics.
Can I just ask a question before Henrique from a
Of
person?
course.
Because I thought it was a good question. There is a person in the audience, and I actually know it's a parent. All right, I'm not sure this parent's going to be there, but the question is pretty good. How do you guys see, because we are talking about our practice, right, as professionals, like we look at the problem in a different way and we look at the solution in a different way. But many parents are like, if you think about, many parents are into that old mode that you got to change them, you got to do the right way, or like how do you see the role of the parents on making this change possible, this change in attitude from us?
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think and one that probably has a long answer. So I'm going to try to be quick. But I think similarly to when we're working with kids with a lot of challenges, we sometimes we ask ourselves questions like, do they want to change this behavior? Is this important to them? And to what extent do we want to collaborate with the child themselves to make sure that we're targeting the right goal or intervening in the right way? And I think the same mentality should come into play when we're working with parents. If parents have that mentality that's maybe a little bit more old school or more traditional, it's sometimes not up to us to change their perspective or make them want to do something differently. It's about working with them and figuring out a way where we can kind of collaborate, come together, and make some plans, because every parent comes to the table with a different perspective or different expectation. And I've learned along the way to really try to make sure I'm appreciating or I'm trying to understand where they're coming from or what they want to do, while I try to implement some of our approaches or our practices and behavior analysis. So I don't think it's necessarily about making sure they change what they're doing, but understanding and giving them options and giving them more tools that they can use at any moment. Showing them what can be really effective in maybe a more modern or more contemporary approach to behavior analysis and setting healthy contingencies, but also recognizing that they're the parent, they're there 24 hours a day, and they should be able to do it however they want to do it, whenever they want to do it. So really working with them to recognize it's not necessarily about changing their mind or their perspective, but giving them options, I think is how we try to do it. As a parent myself, sometimes I'm like, I throw everything, all of what I just said out the window, and I'm like, you have to do it because I said so.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I have to do. And so I think,
like we got to go to school right now, like.
Yeah. So I try to remember that when I'm doing some parent coaching or working with them on how to be more effective.
Right. This person, you may meet her, this mother, I didn't want to say at the beginning, but like she's from the Northeast as well. And she's one of the our partners in the other town, a little southern from where you're going to be.
Great.
So we may have opportunity to be together there. But that was a good question. Anything else, guys?
We're going to practice our Portuguese, just so everyone knows.
Okay, good. Well, let me tell you one thing. My husband has been in Brazil for 10 years. He does not speak Portuguese, and my whole neighborhood now speaks English. So.
Okay.
But Paula's husband did better.
Good.
Henrique has a question. Henrique, I didn't understand your question. Can you put it?
So, Cory, could you talk a little bit about
That's the last one, okay?
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about the different response the speech language pathologists and the behavior analysts use to training FCT for different profiles of our clients?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to be giving a talk during the workshop on ways that we can collaborate in this assessment and treatment process. And so in my experience, what I found is very often we have the same end goal, right? We want the individual to communicate more and have less challenging behavior. Typically, we start off going in the same direction. And then I think one thing that speech and language pathologists are really good at is understanding kind of all the complexities that come with trying to increase a repertoire of verbal behavior of a lot of language, right? They're excellent at kind of giving children like a wide range of options for communicating. They're good at understanding the typical, what might be considered typical language development, and understanding what to target with respect to what you should expect in terms of a developmental stage. And then something I think behavior analysts are really good at is pinpointing maybe one particular response that we're going to teach, and we're not going to stop until that child or that adult is emitting this functional communication response. And so what I try to do when I'm working with teams that involve SLPs and BCBAs is remind everybody that we've got the same end goal, and we're going to get there. It's about how we get there, recognizing kind of both expertise, the behavior analyst understanding how to set up contingencies to really motivate the child to learn a new response, the SLP understanding the complexities about language and typical development and how we can incorporate that into our teaching. So really kind of what the talk will be about, I'm still working on it, but it's going to be mostly about steps along an assessment and treatment process that you can be highly collaborative. Where are the spots where both expertise come into play to achieve the best outcome?
I have 2 questions that I want to close with, all right? That I got from people here.
Yeah. All
right. I'm going to start with, it's just 2 and then we finish, guys. When should we start focusing more, stop I think he wants to, the person is asking about like this whole like basic skills, discrete trial training and all that stuff, and focus on the functional daily, day-by-day skills. When do you look at the independence and forget about like a high score at a VB map?
That's a good question. And I think it's hard to, give an exact answer, but I think a lot of the things that we consider is maybe we stop targeting really specific VB map goals, but we keep the spirit of some of them, and how can we turn those into functional skills? So maybe we're not teaching specific matching or specific sorting to fill in a VB map, but how can we teach them this skill in a way that's going to be really useful and productive for them? So should we teach them categories that align with their speech device? Like, should we teach them, maybe sorting clothes so that they can become independent with their laundry, or sorting foods that go in the fridge versus foods that go in the cabinet? And so it's not necessarily a full abandonment of one and adoption of another process, but how can we kind of look at those skills and make them more functional, right? The goal of the VB map is to teach a lot of skills that then become generative and lead to a lot of other skills. But for some kids, you might just need to transition those goals to more functional things that are relevant, that have more meaning to them. So it's hard to say exactly when that should happen, but I think it's good to look at how long have we been teaching this? Is it meaningful to the child? And do they want to participate in this skill? And if we switch it, will they want to participate more?
Very good. Actually, I do have another question that I have. Okay. It's only 2 questions, guys, and that's it. All right. We're gonna but one question is by that staff of mine that's gonna watch you guys in João Pessoa. She's from here and she's making all the efforts to be there with you. So you're gonna meet her. But she wants to know, how do you feel about the workload, the number of hours of services? This has been a big thing here, the 40 hours, the low-VAS 40-hour thing versus other models with less intensive workload. How do you feel about the number of hours of treatment, especially in early intervention, I guess?
This is something that we don't have a good answer for. And I know a lot of people are trying to do more research to kind of figure out what it is. I think personally, we kind of go with quality is just as important to quantity. You could have 40 hours of not great therapy where there's not a good rapport, where the child's not making progress, versus another learner who's getting 20 hours of really rich therapy with somebody they've got a great rapport with. And so I don't have a good answer, but I encourage people to really focus on the quality of the services as opposed to the number of hours.
And in fact, we don't have much data on this. And I always tell people, I said, this whole 40-hour thing came from a paragraph that Lovaz wrote as like, and then all of a sudden became like a technical parameter. You know what I mean? Like as if he had done 40, 39, 38, 37. No, he didn't really, you know?
Yeah.
And the last question to close our day is Caio Miguel. So Dr. Miguel wants to know, many professionals base their structure assessments no, I got the wrong one. Hang on.
A lot of pressure to close out with a question from.
Yeah, it's a big guy. Right? No, many professionals, they use like those structured assessments to select their, more in the structured assessments to select their goals than on the day-by-day of the child to select the learning goals. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that balance between standard assessments versus individual needs in the day-by-day basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can do both, right? So I think a good or how we try to design our treatment plans are use an assessment to inform like target goal areas, right? So if the VB map tells us, you know, like Kara was saying, maybe there's deficits in categorization or sorting, or even all the way down to, you know, deficits in manding or whatever it is, writing goals that will help them fill in the gaps with respect to developmental norms, but not being so specific in your goal writing that it means you need to do one particular thing every single day, every single time. We try to write our treatment goals that have such that you could be doing a variety of different things and still working towards the same outcomes, right? So like Kara was saying, if it's filling in, or if you're working on sorting, we probably wouldn't write a goal that will sort colors or will sort animals or will sort kitchen utensils. It would be more of a broad goal about sorting or categorizing, and then we work with the family and the individual to think what's important to them. What do they want to do when they grow up? Are they interested in working in retail? Great, we should probably have them sort pieces of articles of clothing so that they can get a job doing something like this, and then we can work on that. Or if the next week their preference changes and they want to be a chef, let's work on sorting foods in the kitchen. So I think it comes down to you can do both. You can have really good assessments that inform areas of need and write treatment goals and write treatment plans that allow you to use a lot of different materials and expose them to a lot of different conditions and learning opportunities at the same time.
Yeah, and if I could add too, I think, like Cory said, those assessments are really helpful in figuring out, you know, where are their gaps. And I think, yes, you may write goals, right? Say you learn they've got deficits in manding, and you write a goal that's maybe anchored into the VB map. Or you write a regular manding goal that they'll spontaneously man for X amount of things. I think what's most important for me when I'm looking at a client's program is what's the methodology for us to get there and develop that manding repertoire. So whether it's anchored in the assessment or a goal that parents and I have deemed as important, are we sitting that kid down at a table, holding up something that they like and making them say, Elmo toy, or am I creating motivation in a naturalistic context where they're really motivated by it and I'm looking at their indicating responses, and then are they learning how to say Elmo toy because we created this context? And so I think those assessments are really important, but what's more important is how are we getting to that goal? Because teaching a kid to mand sitting at a table is not going to be as transferable as doing it in their natural environment and like seeing what they're motivated for in that moment.
Right, and I agree with you. Like many people, I think there is a confusion between what a goal is and how you're going to get to the goal.
Yep.
Because you can have like one goal mending and 300 forms of working on that mending behavior. So
Right.
I always tell my staff, I was like, there's the goal, and then there's the protocols, there's what you do, you
Right.
know.
Mhm.
Cool, very cool. So we extended a little bit more than what we wanted, but I think it was very nice.
Thank you for
Nice
having
warm up for us. I really appreciate you guys, your time. Thanks for joining us, and pretty soon we're gonna be together in a nice warm weather right before you guys start getting cold there.
Sounds
Yes.
great. Yeah, we need it.
Yeah, we're excited to come down and meet everyone.
Yeah, you guys are gonna love it. It's a lot of fun, and it's gonna be a very old school gathering, right? It's like those workshops like that we don't see anymore, like with like 100 people and like everybody get to know each other.
It'll be
Oh,
fun.
that's great.
So that's gonna be fun. Thank you so much, Kara, Cory, and I'm looking forward to having you here.
Thank you.
We'll see you
Thank
soon.
guys.
Bye. Good night.
Have a good night.
Boa
Good night,
noite.
everyone.
Boa noite.
Obrigado,
Bonito.
pessoal. Boa noite para todos. Espero que tenham
Ah.
gostado.